come on, man, you know the thing. Who else is a more patriotic American than these fine folks? I mean, other than maybe Colonel Sanders, because his chicken is tinger flicking good. Finger sticking good. I mean, come on, man, you know the thing. They're definitely better than that Bernie Sanders guy. Can you believe I beat that guy in an election? I am Joe Biden, Bo Jiden. As the President of America, I just want to say Jim Jar are cool cats. I am Joe Biden, Bo Jiden. I mean, come on, man, you know the thing. Anyways, I gotta go. I have to go to deliver some tanks or something to that President Zelensky guy. Peace out, hooliganies.
Good morning, afternoon, whatever it is for you. Good, whatever it is. How you doing today, Yona?
Smoke more of the weeds you must. Chilleth and abideth.
Right.
What?
That is right. That is right. What is up, Warren? Good to see you in the chat. Waiting for people to come in and start hanging out a little bit. Oh, I wanted to show it off today. Look, everybody, I got to wear, finally, I got my own work on my shirt. So I drew this about a year ago, and my friend put it on a shirt, and I'm so excited. I get to wear it finally. I'm so stoked. I finally got the shirt. I'm stoked. It says I identify as an alien. So I'm excited. I'm wearing my work today. Good morning, Anthony. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. All right. Well, how has your week been? How have you been? Uh-oh.
You know, I've made the transition from the old work way to the new work way, and that is using my cell phone as my primary device of employment.
That's right.
You know, doing the whole gig economy with the Uber and the Lyft and the DoorDash. I always poo-pooed it. I was always playing the Luddites lament. You know, I just want regular 9 to 5 guaranteed. But then all of a sudden, in the midst of having off and on dabbled and delivering pizzas for Pizza Hut and Marco's and Papa John's and others, you know, prior to the Koofy Festival or whatever, the pandemic, whatever you want to call it, prior to all that, really the only places that traditionally would actually deliver food to your doorstep were pizza joints and Chinese places, you know.
Yep.
Otherwise, if you wanted that food, like if you wanted Red Lobster, you gotta go to fucking Red Lobster. But, you know, now there's Grubhub and Uber Eats and DoorDash and blah, 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 blah.
Instacart,
So, you know, it's but collectively known as the gig economy, right?
Right.
Because just, except I think there's been some court cases in California that said that, like, if you're in California, then are a direct employee like Uber or DoorDash. But if not, well, you're just a plausibly deniable independent contractor, and have fun come tax time.
Yep. Man, doing taxes as an independent contractor is the worst.
Yeah. You know, it is what it is. it takes care of the biz. So,
Yeah.
what's really cool about the gig economy is it's allowing me to subsidize my journalism, because now, like, for example, I've got another day of shoot planned where I've already got my different camera locations where I know I've got the perfect view. I've already set it up for where I need to be and what time of day, so that the sun's just in the right place, and then I can get those locations filmed at Mothman statue and everything else in Point Pleasant. But I'm probably going to share that one with Bulla first, hopefully before Mundus Ultra gets a hold of it, because we're not going to get into the mud right now.
All right.
But it's so much fun getting to hands-on see these places on the ground where the history and for me the entree into all of this journalism on the ground begins with the February 3rd derailment of Norfolk Southern in Columbiana County in East Palestine, and the subsequent chemical releases, which as bad as the dioxin and the butyl acrylate, ethylene glycol, and all kinds of shit that built out there, in addition to the diesel and gas and all that was in the trench. And, you got the things that leached liquids into the watershed of Leslie Run and Little Beaver Creek down to the Ohio, as well as the aerosols that, were ignited and put into the air and drifted over into West Virginia for a little while, and then predominantly the winds changed and it blew into Pennsylvania and New York and all the way into like Ontario, Canada. And sadly, when you go back through time, you find there have been a lot of chemical release on the Ohio River previously, and in West Virginia particularly. And so, because for me, the first time I can ever remember as a young being alarmed by hearing about a chemical spill was when there was an explosion at the chemical plant in Bell at the Union Carbide Works out on Carbide Island, and that was in 1985, and I was about 11 years old. But that was a big deal because it happened in 1985, like I said, and that's just after there was a previous explosion at a different Union Carbide facility involving the same material that oxidized into the same aerosolized gas cloud. Then we're talking about MIC, or methyl isocyanate, and methyl isocyanate oxidizes into phosgene. Just like when you light TCCD, which is, the worst form of dioxin that they were lighting at the trench in East Palestine, that made that huge black column of strange looking smoke, right? And then when it got done and it rained over it, it left these weird pieces of black ash on people's yards. I'm sure you've seen some of the, you featured some of those videos. In fact, Jimmy, I saw them here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's what, because in 1983, Union Carbide had a methyl iso catch fire at their plant in Bhopal, India, which led to a phosgene gas cloud literally blowing over the town and killing tens of thousands and sickening and poisoning the area, leaving a toxic legacy. And so that really sparked me into it. And I shared the link with the video that was edited and put together at Grand Theft World Liberty Radio News headquarters there, all the different little video clips going into this story, which hopefully I'll have published by this weekend, called Orange You Safe, America. And it's the history of Agent Orange. Orange You Safe.
I've got the Agent Story Del Rio, Ohio video if you want to watch it.
Perfect. Now I can give the little segue here. I
All
got
right.
about a 90-second rant that'll put you right to this point. So you have to
All
go
right.
back to imagine an old wagon, like the music video for Wagon Wheel. What are they called? Old Crow Medicine Show that does that song, Baby Rock Me Like a Wagon Wheel. And the video for it, like set in the old Western days, think like the 1850s, right? An old Conestoga covered wagon. And in the back is this huckster carnival barker with his snake oil medicines. Hey, folks, rolling into every town. Come one, come all. I've got my new snake oil, Big Bill Rockefeller's patented snake oil medicines. And he's dragging his wealthy to-do wife or family's fortune along with him, Eliza Davison. And so Big Bill Rockefeller and Eliza Davison are rolling around in Western New York. And they ended up, 1839, when John Rockefeller was named his son, born to his wife, and his middle, John D. The D is for his mother's name, Davison. John Davison Rockefeller. The one and only. And amazingly, this prodigious man, by 1862? So let's do the math, Michael Jordan. How many years is it from 1839 to 1862? Yeah, that's number 23 on the jersey. 23 years old. This motherfucker's in Cleveland, banding up with, Samuel Andrews and Clark. And so all of a sudden you got Rockefeller, Andrews, and Clark. Well, what is it? 1865, they get rid of Clark and they bring on Henry Flagler, and then boom, Standard Oil Company, Cleveland, 1865. Keep up with me. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. All right, so Standard Oil Company becomes the dominator in petroleum products worldwide, and they immediately set about developing derivatives from their oil products, because that's what snake oil compounds, and so it's all about, and so he looks into making artificial textile products, plastic industry, artificial medicines, pharmaceuticals, artificial greases and poisons, chemical industry. All of that comes from John Davison Rockefeller, the son of Big Bill, the snake oil salesman Rockefeller. And so when you see this tree from where it sprouts and takes root, then everything else makes sense. So it's about the branch of the tree at the bottom called the petrochemical industry. And that's really kicks into high gear during World War I, when U.S. business interests are able to take over the German company in making pesticides and stuff. And that becomes Union Carbide. And so in 1921, I think it is, they chemical plant on planet Earth in Clendenin, West Virginia, which is just north of the capital there in Charleston on the Elk River. And that's where they first started cracking carbons and making products that we were probably more familiar with today, like, ethane and ethylene and butane, like think of like a lighter, right? So amongst these different chemicals that they happily discovered at the first chemical plant is dioxins and cyanates and acrylates and butylates, because they're carbon cracking. They're heating up petroleum and then putting it through different distillations. And, there's a long history of in Appalachia, at least. Shout out moonshine. Triple X means it's been distilled 3 times, for example. So fast forward to them moving, because they ran out of space there. And so they moved the plant down to an island in the middle of the Kanawha River called Carbide Island, Blaine's Island. And that's where they would build the first production facility for methyl isocyanate, methyl isocyanate, or MIC is what it's normally called. Not to be confused with military industrial complex, although they're the ones that they're one and the same. I'll get to the whole, because Union Carbide is the company we're talking about. That was a spinoff of Standard Oil Company. It was their petrochemical division, we might as well say. With the main player being George O. Kerm Jr. It was Kerm then leads Union Carbide to set up the main research facility in Tennessee for the gaseous diffusion and enrichment process of uranium in the Manhattan Project, also known as the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. That was the Union Carbide secret nuclear works that began during the Tennessee Valley Authority. So again, all of these super weapons of the military and everything, they were always a public-private venture between the Pentagon, or the War Department as it used to be called. Now it's the Department of Defense. I love euphemisms. But anyways, going all the way back, if you really get to the heart of the history of the United States, all the way back to the Boston Tea Party, we're only seeing the business end of democracy. It was never about the female end of democracy or the child end of democracy, citizens end of democracy. It's always business end of democracy. So for fascism fans, the Roman fasces symbol, the bundle of sticks bound together forming the handle for an axe. Well, the axe head is the democracy they keep pounding you over the head with, and the bundle of sticks is the bullshit that they try to keep tied together, because if any of it loosens up, then it all just falls apart. So I think that brings us up to date, so you can cue the video.
All right, cool. Here we go.
Agent. I talk so much when I'm high. Oh my God.
Hola y buenos días otra vez, amigos y amigas. Estoy el corresponsal. Yes, once again, it's your favorite correspondent here, Hi Yona, with Grand Theft World Liberty Radio News on the ground with the developing story here. Well, it's been in development for quite some time. It began in Clendenin, and then it moved on down the river here to Charleston, West Virginia. Here we are at the Dow Chemical West Virginia Operations North Charleston plant. And just across the river, you can see the methyl isocyanate complex where Agent Orange was manufactured. If you need to defoliate half of Southeast Asia, just get your good stuff from West Virginia right here, folks. Union Carbide Corporation. And there is Carbide Island, a.k.a. Blaine's Island, in the beautiful Great Kanawha River. That's Kanawha, not Kanawha or however else you were mispronouncing it. It's Kanawha. Okay. All right, that's it for now. Moving on. And there it is, folks. A close-up shot of Blaine Island, a.k.a. Carbide Island. Right there in the middle of the Great Kanawha River. And just across the river here, you can see that's the beautiful facility that manufactures all kinds of vinyl chlorides and dioxins. Yum, 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 yum. There's the best view of that little fucker right there. Methyl isocyanate.
Sorry to your ears.
Hola, amigos. Otra vez. Estoy el corresponsal. En vivo desde la orilla del sur. El río Ohio. En el estado de West Virginia. Here I am live on the southern bank of the Ohio River in West Virginia, directly opposite what the locals call Gallipolis, Ohio. And I've been witnessing quite a few dead animals between the edge of the road and the riverbank here as I've been driving down the Ohio River from Parkersburg, West Virginia, and we're going all the way back down to Huntington, back home here. Just checking things out. Been doing some journalism all day long. This concludes yet another day of some gonzo journalism with yours truly, El Corresponsal. Hi, Yona, on behalf of Grand Theft World Liberty Radio, live on West Virginia Route 2. Hasta luego, amigos y amigas.
Ese lunar que tienes, cielito
Get it.
la boca.
I think there's a little bit of a break, and then there was one more.
P.S. postscript. Turns out there's actually pipelines that run underneath the river right here that transport vinyl chloride. I certainly hope they never leak or anything. But as you can see, this is a very, very secure facility. Very secure. Okay.
Yup, that's how they do it. That was
I was
awesome.
literally able to go, anywhere I wanted to go at that place. The refinery is a little bit different. That's another story I'm working on because the refinery has different rail yards in it. Because we live across the river from a refinery. I really did think about swimming in that river, but I didn't bring my floaties, and safety first. I have to inflate my floaties before I go.
Right. And there's got to be a tornado for you to bring out the floaties, so.
But it was wild. Like, there was zero security around any of that facility. And I'm like, literally every single pipeline coming out of the ground's got all these signs with the skull and crossbones. I mean, it looked like a pirate's cemetery or something. There was so many Jolly Rogers in there. It's crazy. Yep. The story of Agent Orange, to me, is a really good microcosm of the entire story of the petrochemical industry, in that there's hardly been any regulation from its very inception. And to this day, the only way the lay public is able to really inform themselves, if there is, God forbid, yet another chemical release, air quotes, controlled or otherwise.
Right.
The only thing a first responder or just John Q. Public can do is search out for the MSDS, which is the Material Safety Data Sheet. And the sobering reality comes into focus with lots of DPI. I'm talking 2K res or better. Lot high FPS, frame rate reality. Wow. Because I'm going to say about 80% of all MSDS sheets are just pretty much blank. I mean, it has the name of the chemical and what are the carcinogenic effects, teratogenic effects.
Right.
Unknown, never tested, unknown. And so, every time there's a chemical release of one of these clean coal companies in West Virginia that helps make coal clean and carbon neutral, which I don't know how you make coal carbon neutral. I thought coal was essentially carbon. Never mind.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
Don't think too long about it. You'll derp like I just did. So it's just staggering the complete lack of regulation of the chemical industry. And so with the first chemical plant happening in bumfuck West Virginia, surrounded by the echoes of cats playing banjo on the old country store front porch, and the squeals of tourists squealing like pigs. Shout out Deliverance. plant after plant has proliferated up and down the Ohio and Kanawha and Muscatine valleys in the Appalachian region at the headwaters of the Ohio River. To this day, it's still filled with, I literally, my last Uber rider that I delivered last night, I delivered to a place on the map that is literally called DuPont City, West Virginia. Yes, it was a DuPont company town. West Virginia is a case where every single industry that came in literally built the railroad into that part of the valley, clear cut all the timber, opened up all the mines, built the chemical plant, coal tipples, and laid out the streets and retained ownership of everything, including the stores. And then all the workers that were brought cars that wouldn't open, that were painted black with paint so they couldn't see where they were in case they wanted to escape. And then they work at the sawmill or the coal mine, and they're not even paid real money. They're paid wooden coins that are called scrip.
Wow.
That can only be stored out. Have all these towns across West Virginia that are still to this day retain their company name. It to me, it's corporations in a more naked and raw form before they became more perhaps sophisticated in their public relations. Because, the corporate history of brutality against their workers is centered between Andrew Carnegie and his steel empire in Pittsburgh, Kerm and his chemical empire in West Virginia, and Rockefeller and his oil empire in Cleveland, Ohio. Still today, so much of our foreign and domestic policy is a petrochemical policy. And of course, the pharmaceutical industry is but yet a grandchild of big oil, because big oil begat, I hate to sound biblical, but big oil begat the petrochemical industry. And then the petrochemical industry begat the pharmaceutical industry, because pharmaceuticals are petrochemical products, just like the plastics that they're wrapped in, which is yet another oil product. And so much of what we consider to be modernized medicine today is a big oil product delivered lock, stock, and barrel, totally, completely, and wholly out of oil and oil products. Virtually everything, from the polyester sheets to the plastic syringes to the plastic IV drip tubes to the actual ingredients that are in the medicines. Good luck with that. I guess I better steer clear of that. But again, I'm talking about where this began, and they've been hiding these chemical factories in Appalachia, surrounded by hillbacks and jokes about the toothless coverall wearing type of Americans for decades. And it's been under our noses this whole time. Toting PSs and C8s and every quarter, as Alex Jones is screaming about frogs turning gay, and the Simpsons are featuring the three-eyed fish in their intro to every show. It's always been the Ohio Valley that's just been repeatedly saturated with chemical exposures, because the chemical industry literally began in Ohio and West Virginia at the headwaters of the Ohio River. And so that's why my first article, logically, the 7 ranges of toxicity, begins with the first U.S. government of land in North America ever surveying of the cities, because Thomas Jefferson realized after the 13 colonies had been settled by England, where any settler could settle any place they wanted and claim any shape that they wanted. So you had different settlers claiming a land in the shape of a T, a land in the shape of an H, a land in the shape of a K, a land in the shape of what the fuck did he do? Did he just draw a line around his hand? I mean, and of course it led to overlaps and constant boundary disputes and land wars. That for example is why Abraham Lincoln was born at one cabin in Kentucky and had to move to 3 different cabins before his father Thomas finally sold the third. After the third cabin, third relocation with people showing up saying, "We own your land." They went to Bardstown, Kentucky, sold everything and moved to Indiana. And that's how Lincoln ended up in Illinois, and why today the state of Illinois is known as the land of Lincoln, not Kentucky, where he was born and lived until he was, pretty much into junior high school age. Because again, it was an absolute fucking disaster. And that's why Jefferson was like, we got to find out a better way to divide up all of this land, because we're stealing land from the Indians so fast that we can't even come. It's funny. Let me rewind a bit. I speak of the 13 colonies, but of course, originally it wasn't 13 colonies. Maine was not separate. It was part of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, right? There was no North versus South Carolina. There was just one Carolina, later Carolina. And what divided ultimately North Carolina from South Carolina, which happens during British colonization. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get so, but how I go with history. And
you're good.
What split the Carolinas was the Tuscarora War, right? And the Tuscaroras, for those that aren't familiar, they ranked themselves with, and so the Tuscaroras were known as the Blue Devils, and they were settled between the Lumbees and the Arahatecs, which are a Chesapeake tribe. But it's in today's geography between Charlotte and Raleigh, North Carolina. Okay, now I've got people oriented back to the middle of the Piedmont of North Carolina, but not down into the grasslands. That's the Roanoke. But so we're talking about the Tuscaroras, the Blue Devils, and that for one reason the Duke University, their mascot still today is the Duke Blue Devils. That refers to the Tuscaroras. But you have to understand that the main capital of the Carolinas was Charleston, which today is South Carolina, Stephen Colbert. And then North Carolina was the beach strips just below Chesapeake, and it's mainly just all swamp. Morehead City would be one of the main ports, Wilmington, but not in those days. It was a vast swamp in between the two, and that's why North Carolina and South Carolina were separate as initial colonies. And then it was North Carolina colony that fought with the Tuscaroras, which is a euphemism for tried to exterminate them entirely. But the Tuscaroras, realizing that they either got the fuck out or were just completely exterminated, sought out the Haudenosaunee, the Iroquois League, up in the Finger Lakes region of New York. Long journey all across the Susquehanna tribes to reach that area. But they sent runners from North Carolina up to close to Rochester, New York. And the Tuscaroras explained their plight. And so all the other Iroquois nations, the Cayuga, the Onondaga, the Mohegan, the Seneca, and so on, they all, and the Mohawk, they all voted to accept the Tuscaroras. So they became the 6th nation of the Iroquois Confederacy at that time. And as a result, the North Carolina settlement was out a tremendous fortune for having waged all this war, and resentful against South Carolina. And because of the different security situation, the Lord proprietors were left in charge of that section, and the king took the southern section back over because it was a more profitable venture. And that's when North and South Carolina were separated by the Tuscarora War. But That's actually how the beginning of my story, The Seven Ranges of Toxicity, begins. As now up in New York, and being seasoned military advisors to all the other tribes that were fighting the white man, because they had been fighting the white man all the way back since the 1630s. And they were able to tell other warriors how white man likes to fight and how they march in formations and wear their funny ass little costumes and like to march out in the middle of the open clearings and everything. So all you have to do is just lay in a ditch and then just pick them off. And as a result, for example, the Minutemen, the colonists in Massachusetts, like Paul Revere, they actually studied the guerrilla fighting tactics of the Iroquois Confederacy and then copied that when they went to fight the British. And so that was one of the complaints of the British against the American colonists, that they were fighting like wild savages, wearing camouflaging their clothes with leaves and twigs and putting mud on their faces and then jumping out of the bushes and screaming and hiding in the trees to fire at us from a clandestine position, instead lining up in royal dress with epaulettes and your sword drawn, shoulder to shoulder, chivalry, good man, in the clearing, conducting proper warfare. You know, yeah, I just picture the British dude with the white powder.
I know. I know. It's so stupid how they used to fight.
And I mean, up until the Civil War, they were still literally having duels outside Capitol Hill, you know, where insurrectionists like to go to have their selfies with the security and do, you know, guided tours through the velvet rope guided tours.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Aaron Burr who died in a duel, right? Because, you know, I mean, you know, we've come along. I mean, I could only imagine if like the Oscars with Chris Rock and Will Smith had happened in like, you know, the 1820s. You know, it wouldn't have been keep my wife's name out your damn mouth and slap to the face. They would have been drawing arquebuses. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Flintlocks are pulled back. You know? And they take 10 steps and it's very formal and four. They do sit and have tea before.
Oh my gosh.
Duel. And of course, there were special dueling pistols made just for that, so that they would both have the exact same make and model and ammunition. So it's a totally fair fight when they decide to kill each other with guns.
Oh,
In a
the justice
civilized way.
system.
In a civilized
way. Right.
Oh my God. But people forget that in our history.
Yeah.
It's always been a history of violence. And all we've ever gotten to truly experience is the business end of democracy.
Right.
Thank you. Oh, looky there. Well, a little fairy just brought me a glass screen protector.
Oh, cool.
For my new cell phone. Now, who else?
All
hey,
right.
Look at this. Who else is going to make their camera debut? Yep. That's for the phone. That's for the phone. Oh, you want it? Okay. Yep. You can play with it. She's at that age right now where you just want to agree, because when she does the initial flop to the floor, what follows? I don't.
It's bad. Yeah, girls are wild.
In the store, especially. I remember. Oh,
yeah, I do not miss those ages at all.
It's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do, you're already entertaining the ire and jeers of everyone else's parenting advice as this child literally fucking melts down in the store like a fucking steamboat going up the Mississippi with those kicking those goddamn legs. I mean, it's just
right.
Oh my God.
I do not miss that age. Well, I guess it doesn't get any better because I have a 15-year-old. Now I just get to hear, she comes in the door and I'm like, hi, baby. And she's like, what's up, bitch?
Well, you've made it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Whole new level.
Exactly.
But that's what inspired me to record that song a couple days ago. And the amazing thing was, like, it began with me holding my girl in my lap, and she kept playing the same three notes. And so I used those three notes to make the chords for that song, which is what's it called? Can't Grow Up Fast Enough. Just can't grow up fast enough. And then, like, when I got done with it, I like knew what kind of lyrics I wanted to write. And I'm looking all over for my notebook, and I can't find my notebook. But I found an ink pen, and I'm like, well, I'll just write it on the back of an envelope. I was like, no, I'm just ready to record. So I just turned on the microphone, did the playback of the music, and I just freestyled for like 3.5 minutes, the whole song on one take. And then I listened to it. I was like, fuck, that's good enough. And now finally this morning I went back and copied down the lyrics from just because all I had to do is just think about it, and it just immediately come to mind. Smiling with a mouthful of teeth, standing on my own 2 feet. Every obstacle's a jungle gym. I just climb right through because every single parent immediately. There's no need to further elaborate. You immediately know what's going on.
Right. Yep.
And that whole attitude in the child of I just can't grow up fast enough, and the whole time you're like, time is just going by too fast. And it almost seems like the more pictures and the more video you take, the faster it goes by, and all your attempts to slow down time only seem to accelerate it. So just my biggest challenge is taking time to stop doing whatever I'm doing and just pay attention to them. That's the biggest challenge in parenting. And the most important thing. Because whatever influence you're not able to provide is the voided influence that is immediately filled in with today's culture and society in the form of videos and shows and content that they're exposed to, because that's part of being human and learning. You use your senses to try to perceive what is real and what's hot and cold and dark and light, and figuring things out in life. And just the example in terms of language acquisition, and we've seen this now linguistically across different countries. It doesn't matter what language you're teaching. And the instructor that's teaching children for the first time phonetics and pronunciation, if that teacher is wearing a face mask, the students are suffering tremendously in which
Oh no. I think we lost him. Oh no, we lost him. You guys are all up in the comments being crazy. It feels like he's trying to come back. I could feel it. He's trying to come back, but it's not letting him. Oh. Yeah. Language structure is very interesting. Spelling to cast spells. Yeah, when you become a witch, you learn that. Like, what do you do when you're learning words? You spell them out. You spell words. Well, witches do spells. So what are words? Words are spells. So yeah, that's okay, Yona. I figured your internet was cutting out, so I'm still here if you want to come back. There we go. All right. There we go. Try that again.
What happened there? I never internet. Can you hear me now? Testing.
Yeah, I can hear you.
1, 2 weeds.
Yep.
That
was a good one. That was
like my internet got interrupted there just for the briefest of seconds, but that was enough to befuddle
Cut
the
it out.
StreamYard, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Nope, you're good. You're back.
But
So you were talking about
language
language,
acquisition.
with kids and
Language
stuff.
acquisition, that it's important to see facial expression and what your lips are doing and what your teeth and your tongue are doing when it comes to early on learning how to properly enunciate your speech, whatever language it is. And with some languages, it gets to be quite a messy, slobbery experience. Sure.
Right. Okay, I did find a video about big pharma history and how Rockefeller created Western medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to watch this and see. I found this video. I thought we could probably watch this and see how this goes.
We have an evil and corrupt medical
Awesome.
system.
All right.
You might believe that the Western medicine that we have today always existed, but it's only about 100 years old. One you can thank is John D. Rockefeller. He was an oil billionaire that became the richest man in the United States. In 1863, he opened his first oil refinery in Cleveland. Rockefeller believed that competition was sin and that he needed to eliminate the competition. Therefore, he started to buy every oil refinery that he could find in Cleveland, and within 2 years, he owned most of them.
23 years old.
Over a decade later, his company Standard Oil owned most oil refineries in the United States. His control over the oil market created the first American monopoly. The government didn't like this, so they forced his companies to split into smaller companies. Because of Rockefeller's greed, not many people liked him. He wanted to fix his reputation, but at the same time earn even more money. Then he found a brilliant solution. Rockefeller found out that there was a way to use his oil to create drugs. His oil was only worth about a nickel per gallon, but if he used his oil to create drugs, he could earn millions of dollars per gallon. In order for him to succeed with his plan, he bought the German company IG Farben. It was the same company that would later assist Hitler when he killed Jews. Rockefeller's biggest threat was natural health. One big problem with natural remedies was that it wasn't possible to patent them. Therefore, he needed to eliminate it. The first step in the takeover of the medical system was to take over the medical schools. Rockefeller then employed a man called Abraham Flexner. His task was to make a report of the medical schools in America. Flexner was against natural health and believed that it was quackery and that hospitals needed to use allopathic scientific medicine. Flexner released his report in 1910. In his report, he said that American schools should impose higher admission and graduation standards. The Congress then accepted his report, and medical schools had to teach allopathic medicine. Allopathic medicine is when you use drugs to treat illnesses but don't cure them. When Rockefeller got the green light that medical schools had to teach allopathic medicine, he and the Carnegie family gave grants to medical schools.
That's horrible.
They told the medical board that they would receive money, but they had to have one representative on the board of directors. And after that, medical doctors started to treat illnesses with drugs. Rockefeller also created the American Medical Association. This organization introduced a medical licensing system. Only doctors that had a license could work as a doctor, and everyone else that used natural remedies got eliminated. The Rockefellers are one of the biggest names in the eugenics movement. It's the belief that the world is overpopulated and that we need to shrink it. Rockefeller and other elite banking families believed that they were better than anybody else and that they needed to create a pure race. The eugenics movement started in America before Hitler killed Jews. It was actually the Rockefellers that introduced this concept to him and helped him kill a lot of people. The Rockefellers also started the organization Planned Parenthood. Its aim was to reduce pregnancies in women. Bill Gates' father was once the leader of this organization, and that's the reason why Bill Gates is so involved in eugenics. The Rockefellers and other elite banking families also created the Federal Reserve,
Just cut in there.
a central bank.
Yeah. You said you wanted to cut in really quick?
Because he mentioned Bill Gates. Bill Gates' dad, William Gates Sr., was actually the lead legal counsel for Planned Parenthood of King County, Washington, which is where Seattle is located. So he, being the chief lawyer and legal strong arm for the Seattle Planned Parenthood, is Bill Gates's father. But definitely put into that position and fed a lot of business by Rockefeller himself. And the other point I wanted to raise, I think I had mentioned previously that when Standard Oil diversified into the petrochemical industry, that it was in the run-up to World War I that they confiscated some German businesses. I just couldn't remember the name off the top of my head, but I went back and looked. And yes, Union Carbide, the manufacturer of Agent Orange, amongst other things, was founded as the U.S. name given to the confiscated German firm Gesellschaft für Linde Eismaschinen AG, and it was confiscated under the U.S. Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917, which passed in the same legislature as the Espionage Act of 1917, which is the law being used to prosecute Julian Assange. But Linde, Linde, Linde today is planet Earth's largest natural gas company. So, yeah. Anyways,
Wow.
back to what you were saying there. There was two vital points to put in there. The main chemical company that he started, Union Carbide, aka Linde America, is now the world's largest gas company for natural gas.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyways.
In America that creates money from thin air. Bankers met in secrecy in Jekyll Island 1910. Their plan was to take over the financial system. In 1913, they got the Congress to pass a bill where the money would be created from a central bank. And with the control over the production of money, the Rockefellers and other elite families could now buy everything they wanted. The aim of Big Pharma medicine is not to make people healthy. Instead, its goal is to make everyone sick, because you can't earn a lot of money if people are healthy. All drug companies work together as one network. The whole system can only continue if there are sick people. If people were healthy, then the whole system would collapse. You can't become healthy if you follow the corrupt system. Psychopaths created the medical system, still run it. Unless we don't realize this, we will continue to stay sick and never heal. It's time for you and me to learn.
Okay, that's the end of that one. That's very interesting. What was he saying in there that made me think about what the continuing to stay sick thing. I was just talking about that recently, about how they don't want to, heal us, which it doesn't make sense. Like, even if we did stay healthy, there are still sick people out there. There are still people dying every day. You would think that they wouldn't want to be selfish because of the fact that there is something for them every day, but they don't. They're extra selfish and they want to keep us sick.
Well, through the human lens of a normal, compassionate, healthy person, it's inexplicable, unimaginable, just truly mind-boggling how you could reach such a pursuit, be dominated by such a focus and purpose. But yet, as it's now become ever clear, and they constantly share how they feel about it, these people, these elites that are now branded as job creators and socialites and philanthropists, those are just the best euphemisms for criminals going these days in the English language. But what they generally share is a hoarding nature and a wealth that it's unimaginable. From their perspective, having more money than God himself and seeing that money is worth more than human life itself, you then begin to see that, you know, anything you can do to reduce the number of people on earth is a good thing. It's just going to help in terms of profits. If you view money as worth more than life itself, then all of this makes sense. But for the rest of us, people that see otherwise, we see life as being worth more than money itself, because you can replace money. If you leave, you can get money again. Yeah. But if you lose an uncle, if you lose a father, if you lose a child, you don't get them back. Ask Scott Desnoyers like yesterday. So, you know,
right.
That's so we're dealing with a ruling, what are they, professional managerial class, right? The PMC. We're dealing with a psychopathic elite that have so lost fucking touch that they view money worth more than life itself, right, which is fucking absurd. That's when the plot, sis. That's when you've totally lost the fucking plot. But right, again, that's what these people are arguing for. And so much to our horror, much to the nation's collective horror, we've seen the Hippocratic Oath be amended from first do no harm to first do no harm to your career. Yeah. And then cash your check. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. Even the most activist, spirited people that are hospital workers, I was when they just kept giving out and doing whatever, just kept following orders in the hospital. Not going to name any specific procedures or medicines because, yeah, again, times we,
right,
when the flip and came down from the hospital administration, that now the things that they were given to their patients, they were now going to have to take in order to remain employed. Then they lined up out on the sidewalk and were protesting. And then they asked me to come out and help support their protest. And I, being of a principled position, was like, why now? I mean, if you truly are in healthcare for the right reasons, I would think if you had misgivings about it, whatever it may be, then why would you give that to your patient? I mean, so I would never do. I'd never take that. But I got to give it to you, or I ain't gonna get my check. Oh, I got to take it too. Oh, fuck that. I'll file a lawsuit. Consent, motherfucker. Consent. Well, what about your patients? Anyway, I guess it's a lot of hurt feelings. Emotions are very raw, but to me, I was just trying to make a principal point in this matter, and try to disambiguate from which procedure or medicine or whatever the hospital may decide to do. It's just interesting. It was interesting to see the hypocrisy play out to a backdrop of dancing nurses.
Right.
Talk videos in the midst of that, which just made it way creepier than it even had to be. I mean, after the last 3 years, I've been creeped so much the fuck out that I just kind of hide from the world anymore as much as I can.
Right. Same.
Oh God.
Right. Well, speaking of hospitals and medicines and stuff, I found another video from the History Channel about Agent Orange. Now, we were talking about how Rockefeller ended up, taking over the pharmaceutical companies instead of going for medicine that's gonna actually, stop people from getting something. We're more reactionary than we are anything else. So give a little backstory of why did the Rockefeller business create Agent Orange? What was the point of that?
Okay, so Rockefeller's business really took 1865. Of course, he began at age 23.
Yeah.
Who in the fuck is able to just create their own whole ass fucking oil company at age 23 without help from your dad, Donald Trump? Anyways, sorry, I had a frog in my throat. Fred Trump. Anyways, so it does, when you look at the story of John Abeson Rockefeller, kind of smacks like the story of Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and some of these other just unbelievably fortunate young 22, 23-year-old that just, wow, I'm now the head and founder of this massive corporation. Lucky. But, of course, you look at who their parents were and who they're involved with. So 1863, 1865, for those that are missing what I'm talking about here, that's the middle of this fucking Civil War. That's in the middle of the fucking Civil War, okay? And in 1863, particularly, Rockefeller is meeting with Abraham Lincoln to get three drunk guys to all lean against each other on an island in the middle of the Ohio River at Wheeling, West Virginia. So they'll all swear to speak for half of the Confederate state of Virginia and saying that they want to become a new state in violation of three different articles of the U.S. Constitution in the middle of the Civil War. And that's how West Virginia became a state.
All right. That's interesting.
You're not allowed to illegally make a state out of it. And then, well, they did have a referendum vote, and the referendum failed, and they wanted to remain with Virginia. Sorry, you're a West Virginia state. Now, why was it done by Lincoln? Because West Virginia was the first wholly carved out territory, carved out by the Yankee federal government for the benefit of corporations. And so that's why U.S. Coal and Coke and the B&O and the C&O railroads immediately poured into West Virginia after the Civil War. They're known as carpetbaggers, and they immediately established all of these different company towns. That's how Clinton ended up being built as the chemical town, which would lead to cracking of carbon and the development of dioxin and Agent Orange. So when it comes to the why Agent Orange was developed, okay, again, we go back to 1907 when Union Carbide was incorporated, but prior to this, it was still under the auspices of Standard Oil Company itself. And they had been working with the War Department researching nerve gases. And in fact, of the nerve gases, like mustard gases and others, these nerve gases, when soldiers were exposed repeatedly to low amounts of the nerve gas, two doctors noticed that they were all exhibiting the same symptoms. And the two French doctors were Guillain and Barré, which today they're immortalized as Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is one of the main side effects that people exhibit from inoculation in injuries. I found a way around the B word. Anyways, dancing on eggshells to talk about anything. This is ridiculous, but I'm doing my best.
I know. You're doing great. You're doing it. You're getting it.
It's like dancing around. You don't want to step on the wrong rail or.
Yep.
Oh, where'd our feed go? Oh no.
Yep.
Maybe it's a good time to cut the music. I've done some club hangers, but long story short, Agent Orange is actually a chemical biological weapon. You know, the beginning of the petrochemical industry is when Standard Oil Company was trying to sell some of their oil products as kinetic weapons to be used on the battlefield. And that's where the development of, hey, if you mix this petrochemical with that petrochemical, and then you burn it in a trench, it makes a fucking gas cloud like phosgene. And then we can use this against soldiers in the trenches in World War One. Or if it's February 3rd, 2023, and a train's derailed, you could think, hey, here's a chance to recreate World War One trench warfare on the Ohio-Pennsylvania state line. Who's game? Who's up?
Right.
And you know, cue to the BBC covering the story that BBC says CDC exposed to TCCD at East Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, like, is this the Babylon Bee? Like, what the fuck?
Jeez. All right, let's watch the video about some Agent Orange, and then we'll get into your music. We'll spend the last hour on your music.
What do you get when you mix 2,4,5-T acid and 2,4-D acid? You get a powerful herbicide that the United States military used during the Vietnam War, and one that's been tied to serious health problems for the people exposed to it. The answer is Agent Orange. Agent Orange was just one of a series of heavy-duty chemicals the U.S. military used in Southeast Asia, called rainbow herbicides. There were also agents blue, pink, green, purple, and white, but orange was the big one. Some 20 million gallons were sprayed on Southeast Asian jungles, fields, and other targets over a 9-year period from 1962 to 1971. It was part of what the U.S. military called Operation Ranch Hand, aiming to defoliate the South Vietnamese countryside. The goal was to rob the Viet Cong of food sources and places to hide. This kind of scorched earth fighting, clearing the land of anything the enemy could use, is an ancient military tactic. But using chemicals to do that was a pretty recent invention. England and the US developed tactical herbicides during World War II, but didn't really use them. Herbicidal warfare was first used by the British in the 1950s in what's now Malaysia. The US saw that and said, that could work for us in Vietnam. Thus, Operation Ranch Hand. But it would come with a price. In addition to those two chemicals I mentioned earlier, Agent Orange also contains something else called TCDD, the most toxic of a class of chemicals called dioxins. Dioxins are dangerous, even in minute amounts. Veterans returning from Vietnam started reporting these health problems in increasing numbers: cancer, birth defects, miscarriages, and skin diseases, among other issues. Over 2.5 million U.S. soldiers were exposed to Agent Orange during the war. And let's not forget about the Vietnamese. Researchers in Vietnam claim that some 2 million cancers and other diseases, and 500,000 birth defects, were caused in that country by exposure to Agent Orange. And despite some bilateral cleanup efforts, the chemicals continue to pollute the soil there to this day. The fighting in Vietnam may be long over, but its legacy haunts both sides of the conflict, thanks in part to Agent Orange.
AKA the Rockefellers. Jesus. That's crazy.
And so, you know, well, that does point out one particular nuance of Agent Orange, and that is Agent Orange was not a product that was sold or manufactured by Union Carbide in and of itself. That was a tarmac reference used by military in Southeast Asia when mixing different batches of chemicals that they had on hand. And one particular mixture of those two chemicals that he named, which I can start rattling off all the details and people will just get lost in the weeds. So just want to laser focus, Yona, laser fucking focus. So the thing about the mixing of these chemicals is the purpose was to continue the dispersal and experimentation of different chemical combinations in active chemical biological warfare. And that's what I really get on in my article, The 7 Ranges of Toxicity. where, literally the very first recorded written instance of, could it not be contrived to convey the smallpox pestilence to the natives so as to accelerate the extermination of this execrable race? General Amherst, in letter to Colonel Bouquet, commanding officer, Fort Pitt Garrison, 1763. And then 1863, 100 years later, some 23-year-old, incredibly young little whippersnapper in Cleveland gets to found and immediately champion the world's largest, most profitable oil company ever with no help. It's amazing how Rockefeller came from nothing. Because he didn't. You go back to Big Bill and the snake oil salesman, and more importantly, Eliza Davison, the mother. But again, I don't want to be all. I'm going to let Johnny Vedmore do Johnny Vedmore type stuff. We're going to keep it all Yona. So when it
It's
comes
so
to
interesting how like the petro oil and stuff, Rockefeller made his these big oil companies and horrible, corrupted CEOs and stuff like Rockefeller started his thing in Ohio, and now like bringing it all the way back around, like in East Palestine, that's in Ohio, all these train derailments in Ohio. It's like the founding place of corrupt corporateness is now like falling apart right in front of our very eyes.
Well, that's why I wrote that story. That's why I led with the story, The 7 Ranges of Toxicity, because it's like literally the Bermuda Triangle of American history. It's the memory hole that everything has been sucked through. There was no smallpox blankets. There was no mass extermination on the Ohio Valley. There was no conquering of the old. There was no George Rogers Clark. There was no Standard Oil Company. DuPont, Dow Chemical, they came out of nowhere. There was no chemical industry. We don't know where Forever Chemicals came from, but they're this forever now. And so now all of a sudden there's Teflon coatings and dioxins and everything else showing up in the urine of every single congressional member. Remember, it's like, bruh, because there's been zero regulation of big oil and chemicals. And I mean, the only pushback really of recent was by the outrageous progressive Richard Nixon with the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act. I shouldn't even be able to say that in the same sentence.
Right.
But here we are. I mean, and the electioneering, the election fraud that's gone on since Richard Nixon had his committee to re-elect president, creep, like, Oliver North, Gordon Liddy, and others. Later would go on to be Fox News personalities. Anyways, he's the one that sent the goons over to the George McGovern Democratic headquarters of his 1972 campaign, which was in what was the name of the hotel? Right, the Watergate Hotel.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And scene.
And scene. So, it's like, and what's happened since with like the Hank Chads and Gore v. Bush in 2000, and then the Callahan software and the alternate server for the Secretary of State of Ohio's official vote tally being in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Shout out Denver. Or then 2008 election. Yeah, it's just escalating levels of election fraud itself. I'm not even putting a toe in the water of all the campaign fraud.
Oh yeah.
I'm talking about the election fraud. How the elections are tallied and counted itself. Like, how the fuck is any corporation allowed to sell a vote counting machine that uses tabulation software code that no one can gain public access to because it's corporate code secret,
right.
Corporate secret, business secret.
Right.
You're not allowed to
a
know
7-year-old can hack into it, though. Didn't you hear a 7-year-old hacked into it?
See, I laid the ball up off the backboard and Jen dunked that fucking. Yeah. Put the credits where they're due on that dunk right there. Productions. That's
right.
Yona. That's Image Productions.
you.
On that dunk, she caught the
I'll be
pass
here all
off the
week.
glass. Bam.
Jesus.
It's ridiculous.
I'm telling you, the volcano party is sounding more and more desirable every day.
I'm down. I'm totally down. And of course, you know, it's not going to be the bull or the elephant. The mascot of the volcano party, Elmo. Elmo, to the flames.
Could you imagine? Dude, it's just like this evil
Flaming
ass
Elmo.
Elmo. Yep. Oh
Flaming
my God,
Elmo is our mascot. Flaming
all right,
Elmos.
Ed, are you hearing? We need this in our lives. All right, we got about 40 more minutes. So you've got, all right, I'm going to show your first video, the Jordan versus LeBron Yona Deeper Enya remix.
Now, the thing of it is, I have an actual music video that I made for the Enya remix, but
Okay.
I've not shared it on the internet yet because it's filled with nothing but sports clips of Jordan and LeBron. And I can only imagine. I've never made a music video with all kinds of clips of the Miami Heat and the LA Lakers and the Chicago Bulls. So I could only, and you know, some of it's CBS footage, some of it's EP. Lord, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about the copyright strike. So.
Oh no! Is the music going to be copyright or just the video?
So in this case, I shared the link to my main Yona source for music for those that want to actually download and listen to Yona music, a lot of which has been lost to my third YouTube channel now being deleted. Lets me know I'm doing it right. It's like Stuart Smalley, and it's one of those daily affirmations. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and YouTube cancels me. You know, so I'm definitely, my journalism's on the right track. All my shit, but in the process, you know, all these subscribers that keep subscribing or looking for my music, it's gone. So, you know, you can go to Rumble, you can go to Odyssey, you can go to BitChute. Most of it's there. I'm going to make the commitment to upload all my music to Bandcamp, and so that's where the link is there. What I shared with you, Hi Yona Bandcamp link.
Yep, I put it in the comments section so people have it. All right,
because the whole thing was, you know, I you know, to me, people are more Americans are still vociferously engaged in this ongoing debate, Jimmy. Who was the greatest of all time? Was it Kobe Bryant? Was it LeBron James? Is it Steph Curry? Is it Michael Jordan? And it's into a fantasy land so deep and absurd that I think the words of Michael Jordan explain it best when he is quoted himself later in the song. And trigger warning for those that have problems with loud noises, jump scares, strobe lights, or ancient Irish Celtic rhythms, or Enya in general. You were warned.
That's right. All right.
That one right there made me the greatest player of all time. So I was super ecstatic because I went to Cleveland because of the 52-year drought. Like I was ecstatic. Like I was not sure that day, the first wave of emotion was I ever saw me crying. Like that was all 52 years of everything, sports and all. And then after I stopped, I was like, that one right there made me the greatest player of all time. You know, everybody was somehow they're the greatest team of all time. Greatest team ever assembled. For us to come back, you know, the way we came back that fast, now was like, this is something special.
Gus things halfway go. Scared to death, scared to living like that. Diamonds and Gus things halfway go. Scared to death, scared to look they shook. Ain't no such thing halfway go. Scared to death, scared to look they shook. Ain't no such thing halfway go. Scared to death, scared to look they shook. Ain't no such thing halfway go. Scared to death, scared to look they shook. Ain't no such thing halfway go. Scared to death, scared to look they shook. Ain't no such thing halfway go. Scared to death, scared to look they shook. Ain't no such thing halfway go. Scared to death, scared to look they shook. Ain't no such thing halfway go. Scared to death, scared to look they shook. Ain't no such thing halfway go. Scared to death, scared to live like that. Diamonds and Gus things halfway go. Scared to death, scared to live like that. Diamonds and Gus things.
I really went nuts with the remix when I got the Orinoco flow. I think the dog just voted for Jordan. Sorry, LeBron.
First of all, you're never going to say he's the greatest of all time. To me, I think that's more for PR and more for selling stories and getting hype. Jack and Tiger never played against each other. They never played in the same tournament. They never played with the same equipment. They never played with the same, length golf course. I never played against Will Chamberlain. I never played against Jerry West. To now say that one's greater than the other is being a little bit unfair. I think when you see the similarities, you understand this is one way you can judge the two. How much impact did each change or evolve the game? Jack, in his time, when he played, the Tiger, now, obviously, Jack wanted more during the time he played. Tiger evolved it to where it was, it crossed a lot of different boundaries, where it's not just a white guy sport. Black guy, African American, all the artists play the game. You play at a level to where it generated so much interest financially that it grew the game from a financial standpoint. Now, does that constitute him being the greatest? Does that mean he's getting less than Jack? I think it's unfair. Yeah, Jack probably has 18 more majors, 18 majors, and Tiger's got 14. And I think those are when, that's how people are judging certain things. I won 6 championships. Bill Russell won 11. Does that make Bill Russell better than me? Make me better than him? No. Because we play in different eras. So when you try to equate who's the greatest of all time, it's an unfair parallel. It's an unfair choice. And I think, those are the demons that, obviously Tiger has to live with. And he's going to be challenged, be graded upon that. But for me, I think they're both great. I would never say one is greater than the other. That's my opinion.
This song keeps cranking for another 6 minutes, so we can crank it another 6, or you can cut to something else if you want.
It's up to you. Do you want to keep going? Do you want to keep going?
Well, let's go on. Let's go on to the Angela Davis. For those that want to do the entire 11.5-minute club experience, because a lot of the house and techno songs, unlike radio-friendly songs, are not just 2 or 3 or 4 minutes in length. Instead, it reaches, it goes beyond the trance barrier, which for those that aren't familiar, the trance barrier is 7 seconds. Once a song goes beyond 7 minutes and 7 seconds, you're in a trance.
Yep. Absolutely.
So when it comes, like I turned my main patron on Bandcamp there, Kameshwari Kate, shout out Kate up in Canada there. She's a DJ on occasion at CHLY 101.7 FM Radio, Vancouver, British Columbia, up in Nanaimo, and has played a number of my songs. And I apparently turned her on to house music. And what I've tried to explain to her about house music is that I like it in that it's really, really popular in the clubs now. It's always been an underground type music, so much radio friendly up until of recent, of course, in Europe, particularly European radio airwaves are dominated by house, and it's what we would call European music. But in the United States, for the most part, Deadmau5 and others, David Guetta, Afrojack, a lot of these artists were just underground, and you would only hear of them at like summer music festivals or just. There has been to popular music with some of this style of house music, but to me, the essence of house music, as it were, generally speaking, it's a driving club beat, but you hear like speeches from like Gandhi or Martin Luther King or Leonard Peltier or Julian Assange. I mean, house music seems to be a unique musical vehicle where you are able to convey historical voices and truths from the past and then like breathe new life into it. So like my house song, Gil's Got Herring, which I dedicated to Slow News Day, aka Steve Poikonen and friends and Gloria Jones. That song is about Gil Scott Heron and his famous song poem, "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." But I'd written my own poem, and so I combined my spoken word poem with his original song, and then a whole new house beat, and the whole thing together, and it totally breathes new life into the whole. Because a lot of people may have never heard of Gil Scott Heron, or had even heard of "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, brothers. It will not be brought to you by," And so with that's my long-winded introduction for these two house songs that I have featured here that I released recently. And so you can be looking, when I say officially, eventually I get around to going to routenut.com, and then I actually release the songs officially and get a UPC code and everything. And then actually go to YouTube and see my official releases because they've gone out to iTunes and Pandora and Spotify and elsewhere. And so then YouTube gives everything that's on their catalog. So you'll see, and there's been people subscribing to Yona Aniwodi Topic, which has got 3 of my official releases, and people are subscribing to it. But that YouTube made that channel. I didn't make that channel. That's because I have officially released music. So you can actually go to Spotify and listen to Yona Aniwodi. Woohoo! But coming out soon will be Frame Dream, which features Angela Davis, Black Panther of Fame, female Black Panther Angela Davis, which I have the video of her actually doing the interview and everything else, and that video got copyright strike. So I'm sharing with you the version, which I think is just the song, and it's not got the 3 different copyrighted videos because I wanted you to be able to play it without getting the stream taken down because it's my, anyways. So that's what you've got here with Angela Davis, Black Panther, and then in the second song, The Greatest, featuring Muhammad Ali and American intellectual James Baldwin.
All right. All right. Here we go with Angela.
Can drinking
Oh, of
water
course.
before bed burn
Of course.
46 pounds in 2 weeks if you are struggling to lose?
Here we go.
Yeah, but the question is more.
This is how Yona delivers history.
You get there by confrontation,
I love
violence.
it.
Oh, was that the question you were asking?
Yeah.
See, that's another thing. When you talk about a revolution, most people think violence, without realizing that the real content of any kind of revolutionary thrust lies in the principles and the goals that you're striving for, not in the way you reach them. On the other hand, because of the way this society is organized, because of the violence that exists on the surface everywhere, you have to expect that there are going to be such explosions. You have to expect things like that as reactions. If you are a Black person and live in the Black community all your life and walk out on the street every day seeing white policemen surrounding you. When I was living in Los Angeles, for instance, long before the situation in LA ever occurred, I was constantly stopped. No, the police didn't know who I was, but I was a Black woman. And I had a natural, and they, I suppose, thought that I might be a quote militant. And when you live under a situation like that constantly, and then you ask me, whether I approve of violence. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense at all. Whether I approve of guns. I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. Some very, very good friends of mine were killed by bombs that were planted by racists. I remember from the time I was very small, I remember the sound of bombs exploding across the street, our house shaking. I remember my father having to have guns at his disposal at all times because of the fact that at any moment someone we might expect to be attacked. The man who was at that time in complete control of the city government, his name was Bull Connor, would often get on the radio and make statements like, niggers have moved into a white neighborhood, we better expect some bloodshed tonight. And sure enough, there would be bloodshed. After the 4 young girls who lived, one of them lived next door to me. I was very good friends with the sister of another one. My sister was very good friends with all 3 of them. My mother taught one of them in her class. My mother, in fact, when the bombing occurred, one of the mothers of one of the young girls called my mother and said, can you take me down to the church to pick up Carol? We heard about the bombing and I don't have my car. And they went down, and what did they find? They found limbs and heads strewn all over the place. And then after that, in my neighborhood, all of the men organized themselves into an armed patrol. They had to take their guns and patrol our community every night because they did not want that to happen again. I mean, that's why when someone asks me about violence, I just find it incredible. What it means is that the person who's asking that question has absolutely no idea what Black people have gone through, what Black people have experienced in this country since the time the first Black person was kidnapped from the shores of Africa.
Damn, that was a good one. I really, really liked that. That's a good interview. I've never heard that before.
It gives such sharp focus to history that is so impolite, to say the least, that it's constantly and vehemently memory held by the ivory towers. And so, that's why I dedicated my first article with Grand Theft World, I dedicated it to Dr. Gerald Horne. extremely prolific and esteemed history professor at Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge. You know, because he's one of the few historians alive today, I think, that really embodies that Howard Zinn perspective of telling history from the side of the losers, side of history from the conquerors, you know, which is peddled to us as being our foundational reality from founding to present. And of course, as the more you learn and dig into it, you find you're able to then demythologize it, really figure out that most of everything you've taught is literally utterly horse shit and bullshit. You know, but I mean, it's a matter of, I guess, if anything, going from childhood to adulthood in this country now is a matter of coming to grips with losing your trust in all the things that you were taught to build trust in for your whole life. So what do you trust now? I don't know. I hate to be that guy, but I guess, you know, I mean,
it's true.
It's never been in
such unicorns.
It's never been in such you know, so vividly. But what's really amazing to me is being able to finally draw the connections locally, because having always studied other languages, having always, you know, Yona the polyglot, always immersing myself into other cultures, other music, other language, you know, I mean, occasionally I will visit my own home culture of Appalachia, and like the song 14 Miles to Cumberland Gap, where I remixed an 1862 banjo song with club banging beats. But I mean, it's only really, sadly, with East Palestine and the recent derailments that I finally focused my attention back home, literally staring between my own feet, and began to you know, with just such horrifyingly draw all of these, make all these connections like an epiphany, like, oh my God, no wonder why the Ohio River is so fucking toxically polluted. It's literally where the chemical industry was born.
Right.
So there's been chemical plants on this river by default longer than any other flowing rivers ever flowed on planet Earth. It's no fucking wonder why there's so much shit in the Ohio. It's no wonder why they began fluoridating municipal water systems in Ohio river towns first, with Maysville and Ashland, and then it spread to everywhere. And now, you know, now they're still fighting this canard in the dental industry that fluoride is totally good for you until it causes fluorosis, which is white spots and mottling and deformation of the teeth. But other than the fact that fluoride destroys your teeth, you totally need fluoride for your teeth. Wait, what? Huh? What?
Right. Well, and the fact that we're putting it in our water and we're swallowing it and putting it in our system as well.
And so then, like, take, for example, like when I was teaching English in Ecuador for 2 years, I get down there, their table salt is totally different, right? Because, you know, down there they have sal iodada, iodized salt, just like we have up here, iodized salt. But they also had sal florada, fluoridated salt, fluoridated table salt, because they're, you know, in order to get fluoride into the Ecuadorian public, they just weren't able to get the supply chain going to get, I guess, the hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is a toxic byproduct of the fertilizer industry down in the northern panhandle region of Florida, for example, where they mine phosphate, because, you know, NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. These are the main things you use for, you know, fertilizers for gardening or cultivation or whatever you're growing in your garden or closet. So the potassium, potash, as it were, that is mined as an ore, and they have to wash it to extract the potassium, and so they use hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is a fluoridated acid. So, anyways, as a result of the phosphate industry, they're left with just all kinds of industrial grade toxic waste, hydrofluorosilicic acid, which burns through concrete and steel. But if it's handled carefully enough, you can deliver it to municipal water plants and add it to the water after they've tested it.
Right.
They test the water first, and then they add the stuff. And you can go and find even YouTube videos of local news reports when there's an accidental spill of the hydrofluorosilicic acid before they can dump it into the actual water cistern. And because they spilled some on the concrete ramp road or driveway, the concrete driveway into the water plant from the main road, and they spilled it in the middle of the thing, and it literally ate through 12 inches thick of concrete and the rebar and everything, bubbling and foaming the whole time. And it's like that's safe in the water.
Cool.
Why is the city buying that shit again?
I know. I know, I'm right there with you.
That feeling when you ask yourself, are we overruled by genocidal maniacs or what? Am I right?
Right.
Jesus
right.
Christ.
I know.
Jesus Christ, man.
All right, we got another one called The Greatest. You said this is a Muhammad Ali one?
And yes, and here's the segue for this. Sadly, as if the dioxin poured into the river from Norfolk Southern Railroad at East Palestine, Ohio wasn't bad enough, we learned that the entire length of the Ohio River can be dammed if you can get a wild barge to break from its towing and lay across the falls of the Ohio River. And that's exactly what happened about 4 or 5 days ago. As the Ohio River was in high tide. The Falls of the Ohio, for those that aren't aware, is Louisville, Kentucky. And so about 6 blocks north of the boyhood home of one Cassius Clay, a.k.a. Muhammad Ali, a.k.a. the greatest of all fucking time, the GOAT, just 6 blocks north of his house, a barge filled with toxic methanol broke its wired mooring and got sucked down the waterfall chute and then blocked the entire river. So the entire Ohio River was bubbling over the methanol barge. Even Rand Paul responded to comments on that methanol barge, but was confident that the experts down there involved in recovery of the barges would get that thing out without spilling any of it. And if anything should go wrong, as the Louisville Water Company already assured folks, this is occurring below our water tank, so we'll be fine. Evansville and everywhere else downriver, suck it. Anyways, go ahead.
Of course, because that's how they treat us.
Can drinking water before bed burn 46 pounds?
Drinking water.
If you are struggling to lose.
Yeah, boy.
Who knocks out everybody and no one can whoop him. That's when that little Cassius Clay from Louisville, Kentucky came up and stopped Sonny Liston, the man who annihilated Floyd Patterson twice. He was going to kill me. But he hit harder than George. His reach was longer than George. He's a better boxer than George. And I'm better now than I was when you saw that 22-year-old undeveloped kid running from Sonny Liston. I'm experienced now, professional. Jaw's been broke, been knocked down a couple times. Bad. Been chopping trees. I done something new for this fight. I done wrestled with an alligator. That's right. I have wrestled with an alligator. I done tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail. That's bad. Only last week, I murdered a rock, injured a stone, hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean, I make medicine sick. Bad dude. Bad. Fast. Last night, I cut the light off in my bedroom, hit the switch, was in the bed before the room was dark. Fast. And you, George Foreman, all of you chumps are gonna bow when I whoop him. All of you. I know you got him. I know you got him, Dick. But the man's in trouble. I'm gonna show you how great I am.
I find myself, not for the first time, in the position of a kind of Jeremiah. For example, I don't disagree with Mr. Burford that the inequality suffered by the American Negro population of the United States has hindered the American dream. Indeed it has. I quarrel with some other things he has to say. The other deeper element of a certain awkwardness I feel has to do with one's point of view. I have to put it that way. One's sense of one's system of reality. It would seem to me that the proposition before the House, and I think that way, is the American dream at the expense of the American Negro. All the American dream is at the expense of the American Negro. Is a question hideously loaded, and that one's response to that question, one's reaction to that question, has to depend on the effect on where you find yourself in the world, what your sense of reality is, what your system of reality is. That is, it depends on assumptions which we hold so deeply as to be scarcely aware of them. A white South African, or a Mississippi sharecropper, or a Mississippi sheriff, or a Frenchman driven out of Algeria, all have, at bottom, a system of reality which compels them to, for example, in the case of a French exile from Algeria, to defend French reasons having ruled Algeria. Mississippi or the Alabama sheriff, who really does believe, in the case of a Negro boy or girl, that this woman, this man, this child, must be insane to attack the system to which he owes his entire identity. Of course, for such a person, the proposition of which we find ourselves tonight does not exist. And on the other hand, I have to speak as one of the people who've been most attacked by what we must now hear called the Western or the European system of reality. What white people in the world, white people come from Europe, and how it got to America. Beneath them, whatever one's reaction to this proposition is, has to be the question of whether or not civilizations can be considered as such equal, or whether one civilization has the right to overtake, subjugate, and in fact destroy another. Now what happens when that happens? Leaving aside all the physical facts that one can quote, leaving aside rape or murder, leaving aside the bloody catalog of oppression, which we are in one way too familiar with already. What this does to the subjugated, most private, most serious thing this does to the subjugated, is to destroy his sense of reality. It destroys, for example, his father's authority over him. His father can no longer tell him anything because the past has disappeared. And his father has no power in the world. This means, in the case of an American Negro, born in that glittering republic, and in the moment you are born, since you don't know any better, every stick and stone and every face is white, and since you have not yet seen a mirror, you suppose that you are too. It comes as a great shock, around the age of 5 or 6 or 7, to discover the flag which you have pledged allegiance, along with everybody else, has not pledged allegiance to you. It comes as a great shock to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you. It comes as a great shock to discover that the country, which is your birthplace, and to which you owe your life and your identity, has not in its whole system of reality evolved any place for you.
My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother. Some darker people
some poor, hungry people in the mud, a big powerful America, and shoot them for what? They never called me nigger. They never lynched me. They never put no dogs on me. They never robbed me of my nationality, raped and killed my mother and father. Well, I'm going to shoot them for what? How am I going to shoot them? Little poor little black people, little babies, little children, women. How can I shoot them poor people? I'll just take me to jail.
I'm saying you talking about me about some draft, and all of you white boys are breaking your neck to get to Switzerland and Canada and London. I'm not gonna help nobody get something my Negroes don't have. If I'm gonna die, I'll die now, right here fighting you. If I'm gonna die, you my enemy. My enemy is the white people, not Vietnams or Chinese or Japanese. You my opposer when I want freedom. You my opposer when I want justice. You my opposer when I want equality. You won't even stand up for me in America for my religious beliefs, and you want me to go somewhere and fight, but you won't even stand up for me here at home.
Dang. He is the GOAT. For sure.
See what I mean?
Yep.
People talking about Jordan and LeBron GOAT. There's the GOAT.
Yep.
That's why he's the greatest of all time. Right there.
Yep.
He just rope-a-doped you into thinking he was just a boxer, and you go back and check the script. Check the script. He wasn't just quick with the lip.
Yep.
He and don't say it trip. He let it rip. And,
That's
and
right.
boy, it stung. They took away. I mean, he became persona non grata. Right? I mean, he went to jail and took away his belts and everything.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And, and then you listen to Michael Jordan's breakdown of the GOAT debate. Michael Jordan's talking about golf and Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus. You know what I'm saying? And, how can you compare me to Bill Russell? It's different eras and everything. To me, I think probably one of the best takes I've heard so far is from Gary Payton, who played both Jordan and LeBron. Just to, we can't play the Enya song and not have the Yona chip in on the thing here. And trigger alert to you Shannon Sharp fans. To me, the greatest of all time debate is not even between Jordan and LeBron James. To me, the greatest of all time is Lou Alcindor, a.k.a. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Wilt Chamberlain. I don't know. I go back to an earlier era, but then people want to argue about I didn't have a three-point shot. But to me, if you're going to talk about the greatest of all time in NBA and go by those that have played thus far and their entire career and their contributions to the game as an individual and to the contribution to their teams, I'm going to go with Kareem. Even though LeBron has now eclipsed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the NBA all-time leading scorer. But I don't know. I'm about exhausted on the sports ball stuff. But that's my take. For those that wanted to hear, well, what's Yona's take on this? Well, there you go. You just got it. So, Jordan versus LeBron, I say neither.
There you go. I remember when everybody was obsessed with Michael Jordan, and then he went to baseball and people just started not liking him, and then he went to golf and people really didn't like him. And then I remember when LeBron became the MVP and just this big person, and I was at a friend's house watching the basketball game, not even knowing who LeBron James is, and they're like, he's about to be the greatest of all time, they're giving him the MVP, and I was just like, who is this guy?
Well, he's never skipped an opportunity to toot his own horn. We'll just put it that way. Oh, hi, Uncle. I'll see you call out that moment.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part of it is these sports people that get really big and famous. It's not for how well they play; it's how well they promote themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I used to be a football player or football fan, and there was some quarterbacks out there during sometimes like New England Patriots quarterback that everybody loved, but he was the shittiest person, like Inflategate. Oh, it was horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, we remember. We remember.
Yeah. Never forget Inflate Gate.
Well, it really did a lot to tarnish the game. I mean, incredibly, there's people that hate Colin Kaepernick so bad they say that Colin Kaepernick ruined football. But if there's anything that really sent a lot of people away from NFL in terms of its legitimacy, in terms of legitimate games, because there's been complaints with officiating for years, but Inflategate really it caused damage to the NFL it has yet to recover from. It deflated the
Deflategate. Sorry. Yeah.
Deflategate. It really deflated the reputation of the NFL. Whereas, I think a lot of the virtue signaling about Colin Kaepernick and kneeling and everything, when you go into the story of him taking a knee, he actually saw it. That was a suggestion from a veteran as to what he should do. And the fact that people were, feigning some great crime being committed, some great dispatriotism by silently kneeling instead of pledging allegiance when, I immediately think of the Bellamy salute, Bllamy, because, when Francis Bellamy pushed out the Pledge of Allegiance, originally up until the Third Reich in Germany took over it as a fascist salute, doing what we call it the Nazi salute these days. But originally, from 1890 something, beginning in Ohio of all places, and spreading across the country, this wave of American nationalism and patriotism was keyed in with one house schoolrooms having the kids say the Pledge of Allegiance. And it wasn't until the 1950s and the anti-communist scare that they added the words "one nation under God." That's when, because the response to communism was to make nationalism more religious in the United States in the 50s. But from its inception, for the first 50 years of all American school kids learning the Pledge of Allegiance and saying it in schools all across America, school kids were saying, "I pledge allegiance to the flag."
Yep.
But you would say, and then you'd put your hand over the heart, right? And so they switched it up. No more Bellamy salute for the Pledge of Allegiance. But it's interesting to me the parallels in fascism when you go back to the development of the public education system with Horace Greeley and indoctrination, and we see where public schooling has reached the crescendo today of a battlefield between parental rights and the school district rights over medicine that your child receives on campus with or without your prior consent or even telling you, and how that's played out in Washington, D.C. and Tennessee. And San Diego was the major groundbreaking case. In fact, that's Aaron Siri, who's the lead counsel for the Informed Consent Action Network, aka ICANN, which is the legal arm of Dell Bigtree and the Highwire and their organization, where they've really been leading the access for all Americans in the world at large to learn about what's going on with regulation of the pharmaceutical industry by the FDA and the CDC, and different products and procedures that are licensed and or emergency use authorized by the governmental agencies. And so, for example, there was a lot of hoopla, rightfully so, about the big pharma saying you don't get to see anything about our Koofy shots for 75 years. But they lost in court and had to cough it up. And so, we've been getting drips of information. But in the case of the San Diego district, they've got, what's his name? Richard Pan, right? The kooky California state legislature, Richard Pan, Dick Pan, who's pushed forth all of the non-consent things and jabby type legislations in Sacramento for Californians.
Right.
You know, you take the 105 to the 405 to the PCH, the Californians. But in San Diego, they made an end run around because, you know, Newsom's kind of wishy-washy. Gavin Newsom's a spineless fucking jellyfish. Who's kidding who? And so the San Diego School District decided unilaterally to declare that for the next school year, they all have to receive the Kooky Boopies. And so I filed and said, wait a second. School district doesn't allow make declarations like that. Only the State Department of Health or yada, yada, yada. And they wanted the district court, then went to the appellate court, then they wanted the Supreme Court, and it's just been slam dunk, slam dunk, slam dunk. And so now a legal precedent has been established, at least with regards to individual school districts. Individual school districts cannot unilaterally mandate that children just receive medications or shots or anything at that time, that there are health organizations that will do that for us. And I don't know, depending on how this new international treaty works out with the WHO, maybe we won't even have to worry about the local school district or the city or the county or the state or the national government. The WHO from Europe is going to tell me what junior has to have to go to school. Because they've declared that we're in a pandemic again. It's really scary what's going on.
It is.
Pay no mind.
Especially with kids. Especially with kids.
You know, I used to eat and drink and do all kinds of things to my own body. But it becomes a totally different game when you go to prepare a meal or give something. Whenever I go to buy something at the store, like just we're on a road trip and I you know, it's time for a potty break. We've been on the interstate for so long, right? And I go into the gas station, and what used to be just an easy exercise of just go and grab something to drink. Well, I go to grab something for the kids to drink. This is going to take a while. I got to read the ingredients on every one of these labels. I mean, goddamn, because if you give your kid the wrong thing to drink, you did it to yourself. What have you done?
What have you done?
You know what I'm talking about? Oh, you give them the wrong sugar water.
Yep.
Oh my God, it's like the 7th grade volcano experiment. It's like shout out volcano party.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, there he is. There he is.
The devil.
There's Kaya Soda. What? You gonna play piano for us? Oh, he's camera shy. See,
he knows. That's so cute. All right, we are done now. What do you got going on this week?
So, coming up this Friday, I got to get the link out to Master. We'll see if she can join in. But Chanda said she wanted to jump in on one of the streams. So I'm really looking forward to mind melding like Spock the Vulcan with the fantastic journalists and entertainers at War Media up there in the Pacific Northwest. We'll be coming up on Yona. Hi, Yona with the lower cast, the Peasants Podcast, live Friday nights on Odyssey and Rumble. After losing 3 YouTube channels, you know, I kind of got the message from YouTube. And it's okay. I'm still the same Yona, but YouTube, you've changed. We've grown apart, and that's okay. I'll do me, and you do you. So, anyways, Rumble and Odyssey Friday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, because they still do that spring forward, fall back bullshit. And then for my journalism, you can find me over at the Circle Grand Theft World website, and also we've got the link there, the manufacturingreality.org, which is where the link takes you to for my lead article, the 7 Ranges of Toxicity of American Empire. And be on the lookout for Orange You Safe, the story, the origin story of the petrochemical industry. We've also got the story I'm writing on WordPress as we speak, One Classless Railroad. which is about the latest merger, because railroading in North America, there's class 1, class 3 railroad, be over 100 class 1 railroads prior to President Carter signing the Staggers Act, which completely deregulated railroads and replaced the Interstate Commerce Commission, or the ICC, which was established in 1983. Anyways, long story short, after 100 years of railroading with multiple Class 1 railroads, Staggers Act passes in 1980. We had over 100 railroads. Kind of like the same thing we had with our media companies, you know, radio and TV and newspaper. Used to be over 100 media companies. Now there's 4, you know. And the same thing with the monopoly board. Now we're basically got 4. Well, it's actually 5 right now, but there was 6, and now there's only 5 railroads left because Canadian Pacific just merged, and the merger was approved because there's no more Sherman Antitrust Act. So we have CPKC, the latest new addition to the Class 1 monopolies, Pacific, Kansas City Southern. Just like when Burlington Northern merged with Santa Fe, they became BNSF, a wholly owned subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway. Shout out Warren Buffett. So, you know, it's a monopoly game. And that's the other. So I got Orange You Safe, one classless railroad, and the super big story, the refinery. And that's the one that's taken forever because they do have good security there.
Damn.
But it's fun doing journalism in between DoorDashes and Uber, I gotta say.
That is so cool. That is so cool that you get to do that. You make me want to get into the delivery business now. Just start driving everywhere.
Well, you know, the whole purpose of the Yona is to give voice to the voiceless.
Yep.
And so that means on the ground, speaking of the reality that's found, you know, far on the media sound, where we live in the violence of utter silence. You know, and the classic example to leave people with is the fact that we've had railroad derailments going on. We've had chemical releases going on repeatedly. So it took a special type of outrageous malfeasance to alert the American public to that derailment. And I would point out that for the first week of the derailment, it was kept in the shadows of the mainstream media thanks to the fucking Chinese balloon story. And so for me, the takeaway with Image Productions, with Grand Theft World, with Liberty Radio News, with each and every one of us as viewers and as content creators, the takeaway is to always focus and keep your focus on reality, on the ground, and not on the dictated fake stories and propaganda that's sent out from inside the castle wall gates. Because that's what James Baldwin talks about after Muhammad Ali in that song. You know, it's all about your perspective. How do you perceive reality? How do you view the world? So if you've lived in Beverly Hills and Ranchos Palos Verdes or wherever your entire fucking life in a gated community, of course the lens through which you perceive reality itself and how you view everything else is so completely and utterly warped because you don't even know people that know what it's like to be poor.
Mm-hmm.
And so you believe that every single homeless person is unemployed and a drug addict, for example. You know, what's incredible to me is that people are finally making these connections now. And it's because of Jimmy's show. It's because of Uncle Warren's show. It's because of Marcus's show. It's because of AM Wake Up. It's because of Last American Vagabond. And so, you know, everyone should take heart that, you know, don't believe the numbers on your YouTube viewers watching. Don't believe the numbers on Rockfin. These messages, this coverage, you know, don't lose heart and think, nobody's watching this, nobody cares. No, we are making a difference. This is reaching people, and I find it's really essential for people's sanity, because it's been so mentally abusive to be lied to and gaslighted like this so much, so constantly, to this online community and this KRTD fam, and this larger fam in general, to take comfort and solace in that we're not the only ones. We're not fucking crazy. And all this shit's fucking crazy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's all I got.
All right. All right. I am going to get out of here, you guys. Yeah. Thank you guys for coming. Ghost Start, John, Miguel, Warren, Peace Dove. Let me see, who else did I forget? Ed, Imagine That, Anthony. Okay, if I forgot you, I just didn't scroll up too high. But I am high, so that's all that matters.
I did forget one last thing. I forgot to cover the Trump story on purpose. That's it. Bless you guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much for not even bringing up that name today. Jesus Christ. I know YouTube is just full of it, so thank you. Ugh. Yeah. See what Ghost Star says. Trump crowd.
We went to a different orange. They're all covering orange man bad, and we covered orange agent bad.
That's right. Yeah, different orange, different bad orange. All right, you guys. Thank you all for coming. I will be back tomorrow. Hopefully I will have a guest. I know on Friday I'm going to be having Sherry on, so keep an eye out for that. And then Saturday we got me and Warren's show. So yep, keep an eye out for that, and I will see you guys all tomorrow. Peace. Oh, sorry.